Hi friends, it's Valerie. Welcome back to this week's What's for Dinner. If you are new here, I'd love if you would hit that subscribe button and join my YouTube family. And don't forget to leave a like or a comment down below because it really does help my channel. I do have my main 3 meals for you though, and 2 of them were really delicious. The tomato basil chicken was fabulous, and also there was like a lemon zucchini chicken orzo dish that was super good. Other than that, let's just get started. For this recipe that I'll have linked for you in the description box down below, I'm just loosely following. So it calls for 1.5 to 2 pounds of ground beef. I'm only using a pound. That's the amounts that I freeze together is just in 1 pound increments. And also I'm not a huge fan of a lot of ground beef. So I just broke that up with my meat chopping tool. I'm cooking it till there's no more pink, and I added some garlic powder to that, even though the recipe doesn't call for it, just for some seasoning. And then I remove my beef from the pan and let that drain, and then with any remaining grease in there, and if you need some oil, just add that in there. I'm cooking up these O'Brien style breakfast potatoes, and I'm just cooking them per the package directions a little. The original recipe calls for putting frozen potatoes into this, and then you bake it for an hour. I didn't have a whole hour's worth of time, so I figured if I started off with all cooked ingredients, it wouldn't need much time in the oven. Also, it called for 3 cups of those cubed potatoes, so for me that was about half the package. Once they were cooked, I added them into the bowl with the ground beef, which is a total fail for me. While moving the ground beef, I actually tipped over and almost dropped the whole container, or the strainer, and now I probably only have about 3/4 of a pound of ground beef left there, but thankfully I was able to still save a good amount. So anyways, to that I'm also adding in some shredded cheddar cheese. It calls for half a cup of cheddar cheese, and so I'm just eyeing that. And then you're going to add in, it's supposed to be 1 can of condensed cream of cheddar soup, and then mushroom soup. So I added the full can of mushroom soup, but when it came to the cheddar cheese, I only did about 3/4 of the can. You do have to remember this, I have way less ingredients as far as beef than that they had, so cutting back on the soup kind of worked out for me. I didn't want this to be just all canned soups and overpower it all. That seemed to be a good ratio. And then I greased the bottom of an 8x8 pan a little with some oil, and I'm just pouring in that mixture right into the bottom. I'm going to kind of smooth it out into an even layer. I believe they also use a 9x13 dish, because again they have more. Mine might be a little bit thicker up than theirs was, but again I'm not worrying too much because like I said, I cooked my potatoes. They're starting with theirs from frozen in the oven, so it's going to take much longer. I'm just trying to heat this up a bit more, all the soups, and let the cheese on top just melt. So I smoothed that out and then added the additional half a cup of cheddar cheese on the top, and I'm just eyeing that. Just put whatever amount works for you. You could also use any other cheese if you like jack cheese. That would be delicious, or pepper jack cheese. I bet that would be really good in this as well, to give a little bit of a heat. I also liked with the O'Brien potatoes that they have onions and peppers in them a little bit, so that also added a little additional flavor to this dish. I baked this at 350 degrees for about 20 to 25 minutes, just till my cheese melted, and I made some green beans. I just put them in the pot with some butter and salt and pepper, and we had some leftover biscuits, so I just put those in the air fryer to re-crisp them up and get them warm. And overall, this was a good meal. I like that it's one of those cheap meals that you can throw together to feed your whole family. It was simple when using the frozen potatoes, and just quick, easy throw together ingredients. The only thing is I just didn't have a full hour to cook this. This is another one of my favorite quick throw together meals. You just take some of these packaged pre-pulled pork things. I like the Jack Daniels one, and then I'm just gonna have some macaroni as a side, some of that just basic Kraft Blue Box, some coleslaw, and I just serve this on a basic hamburger bun. And I know that convenience items like this can be really pricey when feeding a family, so it's perfectly okay to just throw some chicken in the crock pot, pour some barbecue sauce over it, and call it a day. Serve it with some great sides like this, and everybody will still love it. I like to not put it in the plastic tray and put it in a regular baking dish, put it in the oven. I like the little bit of crispiness that can give the meat, versus doing it in the microwave. And there's my mac and cheese. That's my favorite. I love that stuff. And here it is all plated together. Put it on a paper plate tonight because we're just trying to do easy, and this was delicious. I'm starting this off by prepping some of my ingredients. So you're going to need a total of 2 cups of chopped tomatoes. I'm using Roma tomatoes, and for me that was about 3 Roma tomatoes chopped up. We're also going to need half a cup of fresh basil chopped. I just kind of roll it up a bit and then kind of chop it like into little shreds. Now the recipe that I'll have linked for you, it calls for 2 chicken breasts. Now I cut them thin in half, like to make them more like cutlets. It does look like they did the same thing in the recipe, even though they don't talk about actually doing that. So it's just, I think it's going to help with the cooking time to just go ahead and do that. So I'm also seasoning these with some salt and pepper to taste, and then also some garlic powder, which it doesn't call for, but I have to always season everything with garlic powder. So I'm doing both sides, seasoning both sides of that. And then to a large skillet over like medium-high heat, I added a couple tablespoons of olive oil. I'm going to place my chicken down into that, and I'm going to let these cook for about 4 to 5 minutes on each side. That time will vary depending on how big your chicken breasts are as well. I always use a meat thermometer. They're just so handy in the kitchen for things like this. I move those just to one side of the pan. It doesn't say to do this in the recipe. I just didn't want them to cook any longer, but I wanted to keep them warm. And so I just added 4 tablespoons of butter to the pan and let that melt. And then I'm adding in my chopped up tomatoes and the chopped up basil. I gave those a quick toss in the butter to start letting those like just saute a little bit. Then I'm gonna add in the garlic. It calls for 2 teaspoons. I'm not sure if this was quite 2 teaspoons. It's just all I had left in garlic, which for me that really hurts because especially in a dish like this, I love garlic, but I had to do what I had to do. So I just added in, let that cook down a little bit. I added some additional salt and pepper to your liking. You want to taste that sauce, and this is what it didn't ask for. So I have this garlic better than bouillon base, so I figured this will give me a little bit more of that garlic flavor and just enhance a little bit, just bring out some of those other flavors as well. It's just a good nice base to add additional flavor, and that's exactly what it did. It was delicious. I added no more than a teaspoon of that, and then I am just covering up or bringing the chicken back down into the pan, getting that nice and covered with all of that sauce. I just let this simmer for just a couple more minutes to let all those flavors just come together. You could serve this over pasta or over rice. I chose to have it over rice, and we absolutely love this so much. I put that Parmesan cheese on top of the chicken, and then I just served it with like a side Caesar salad. This was phenomenal. Like definitely adding this to one of my list of like favorite meals. It's also super easy. I love the freshness of the tomato and basil addition. Really delicious. I'm going to start this off by prepping my ingredients. So I'm taking some zucchini. The recipe does call for 10 ounces of zucchini and 10 ounces of yellow squash. I just have zucchini, and mine were probably medium to largest, so I just cut those. I didn't cut them into full rounds. I cut them in half, like moon shapes. And then you'll need, it says 1¼ pounds of chicken. I didn't really weigh it out. It's just 2 chicken breasts for me. I cut those up into some small bite-sized pieces, and I patted them dry to remove any excess moisture, and I'm going to season those with some salt and pepper. I recently just got these electric salt and pepper shakers. I was struggling with the pepper there for a minute. I had to change the size. I didn't want it so large, but I'm loving these things so far. They are so handy. And then I'm going to also season those with 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning and a teaspoon of garlic powder, and it says a half a teaspoon of onion powder. I may have added a teaspoon just for some extra flavor. Then it says to add a teaspoon of lemon zest on top of the chicken. So I didn't really measure. I'm just zesting 1 lemon. Whatever I get from it is what I'm going to be using. And I'm also not saving any for the garnish. I'm just going to use it all into the dish. Perfectly fine. And I mix that all together just to get that all those ingredients like nice and combined. Next, I'm adding 1 tablespoon each of olive oil and butter to a large skillet over a medium-high heat, and then I'll add my chicken into there. I'm going to get that chicken nice and coated with the oil and butter, and I'm going to kind of spread that into an even layer. So I don't really follow directions when it comes to cooking small chicken bits like this, because like this recipe says to cook for a few minutes, flip them over, cook for a few more minutes again. I'm not flipping each individual piece of chicken, so I just kind of keep tossing it for a total of about 5-6 minutes, and until I see no more pink on this chicken. And I will check the internal temperature with my thermometer for the largest piece that I can find in the pan, just to make sure. I removed the chicken from the pan, and to that same pan I'm adding in a tablespoon of olive oil. Apparently I forgot the tablespoon of butter there, but there were still some liquids left in the pan from the chicken, so I guess it worked out for me. But you would want to add a tablespoon of butter here. And this is kind of deglazing the pan because it was some brown bits on the bottom, which I really like. It helps flavor the zucchini. So I put that in there. I seasoned that with some garlic powder and a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. I gave that all a good toss, and I'm letting that cook for about 4 or 5 minutes, or just until it's the amount of tender that you would like it. And then if you want to season it with some additional salt and pepper, go ahead and do that. Once that's done, you'll add your chicken back into the pan, and you're going to put the juice from some lemon, which was 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. I believe that was just like a half a lemon. And also 2 tablespoons of chopped fresh parsley into that, and a 1/3 cup of Parmesan cheese. Now I just let that in there with the heat. We'll just get a little bit softened. It's not like fully melted or anything. And I served this over the Orzo pasta. This was really, really delicious. I love zucchini and chicken, lemon, those kind of like fresh flavors. So this is definitely my kind of dish. And then you pair it over Orzo, which I salted nicely, and I put some butter in. So it really completed that meal, and we loved it. On this night, we got pizza from one of our favorite pizza places called Baby Bros Pizza. They do specialty pizzas, and we really like this pizza called The Works. It has pepperoni and ham and sausage, as well as like mushrooms, onions, bell peppers, and olives. And all in all, it's just really, really good. This last meal is one of my favorite things to throw together on a cold, rainy night, and you want something really quick. It's just canned menudo, and I'm perfectly okay with canned menudo as long as it's the Juanita's brand. And I just add like cilantro and onions. I like to add oregano when I'm heating it up, and I do add extra hominy in because I just like the ratio of hominy a lot. I serve mine with just some flour tortillas on the side, and it's just very comforting and delicious. Thank you so much for watching, friends. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that little bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. And I hope you all are having an amazing day.